When there was one, that one was peace, was harmony, was joy. This was balance, but the balance of one pole, positivity. We call this heaven, Eden. This can be seen as a single point with an energy field surrounding it, that field being seen as a zero or a circle. We could even see three energy paths making it the Holy Trinity, self-sufficient and eternal, all on its own. Trinity can also be seen as an inverted Y, or even a pyramid with a beam out the top. May we imagine a blue beam? We read the four happened, or we read the one became two, like cells splitting, almost like the sun birthed the moon. So from our one positive pole another was created, a pull here and a push there, easy to visualise with a second point appearing and the energy field splitting itself between the two poles. This would change the zero or circle into an infinity shape. Within holds the number 9 and the letter G lowercase, the 9 associated with positivity. This splitting energy can be seen in the day with the day and the night. So many hours sunlight and so many hours darkness, with 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness, but that changing throughout the year will be seen as the battle between light and dark. More light hours followed by more darkness, followed by more light hours, giving the impression of a battle. In winter, the cold darkness winning, and in the summer and warmth, the light winning. The year the same, and shows the story of creation, spring, creation, beauty, pureness, summer, growth, warmth, and most importantly reproduction, seen as sin, Adam and Eve. After the fall, autumn, the demise, to the start of destruction. Before the winter comes the death, the cold. Before again creation starts. This is the same for civilizations. They start off with pure, intense, small spring, then grow into something rich and powerful summer. At its peak, it starts to decline for any of many reasons. Autumn, before its destruction, winter, for a new civilization to rise from the ashes, spring. Everything natural and man-made seems to follow this cycle, this pattern. Inverted, the snake biting its own tail. When we invert the shape or mirror it, the 9 turns to a 6 and potentially a capital G, associated with cults. Interesting, this also reminds me of the logo used for the World Cup in Qatar. And also currency, which we relate to money, not power or energy, but can also be seen in the shape but altered, seemingly broken. Scripture for me explains this as above, so below. The top being God's creation and the bottom being a mirrored version of that. The God of that being worshipped as the original, but he's pretending to be so. This, a world of mirrors and illusion, a refracted reflection of the truth. The world of the 6, the world of the 6 God as Drake calls him, Drake being a fire-breathing dragon. The true God is the 9 God. The infinity symbol also makes the inverted Y with the addition of a Y a squatter man-like symbol. As I've said, the squatter man is the symbol for the makeup of the realms, a pattern of life. This other pole, the opposite to the original pole, the energy split between two, having to pass both through the positive and negative poles. When passing through the negative poles, it receiving its charge. When passing through the positive pole, it receiving that charge. In turn, the surrounding field feeling that charge. It needs to be seen as 4D, and the energy passing through the points like as they are holes, almost like a torus field or a dual torus field. The points being holes we will later discuss as goals, as sport follows this exact same pattern. As when energy passes through one hole or goal, it hits or passes through or over the net. Possession is then given to the opposing field. This is why in sports such as football, the ball, the energy, in our case the earth, starts off in the centre, then is moved by one team or force before the team shoots and either scores or misses the goal. If they score, the ball passes into the goal or past the net. It is then returned to the centre or to the other team or force before it's played in their half of the field. In regards to misses, this would be when the energy doesn't pass through one of the two poles or goals, but another path or point. Like the energy moving around an atom or similar like item whose energy moves around various paths, and only particular points on that path holding relevant power. such as scoring a goal or passing through the hole. As sports of all types are imitating the happenings of life, the battle between the two poles, the two forces known as dark and light, good and bad, God and the devil. The aim of all teams is to take control of the game, to retain possession and score a goal. But possession often passes hands, and it's never always with one team. And even when one team has possession, the other team still has a chance to score if that other team makes a mistake. The battle between good and evil. I also see in the shape a Y and an X like the DNA chromosomes, and if we kept making points going down, as no point can be made above the original point, it would end up creating a DNA shape and also the spinal column. It's easy to see how the spinal column is used to show the steps to God. This multiplication is similar to how cells split off and makes me question, is each circle a section, a realm of reality, a copy of creation of the circle from above? It would be like a Russian doll scenario where from one another came, all connected but separate. With us, the next step maybe this is virtual reality or AI, creating a world from our own world, ourselves in a reality offshooting from another one. It could be very well possible there are more poles or points. It makes sense for there to be at least three, a middle, top and bottom, positive, negative and neutral, Father, Son and Holy Spirit, and even further, Father, Son and Mother, Sun, Earth and Moon. It also looks like the Olympic rings if we push it to the side. If we pass one single line through all points, it creates an S. Maybe Satan. Another S is the chest on the chest Superman. Hidden within, we can also see 666. The 3 points can also be seen in most sports such as football and basketball, as the field has 2 goals in the centre spot. Even in tennis, the 2 players stand on opposing sides with a net in the middle, creating the 3. In basketball and football, the ball travels around the field or pitch before ending up at one of these 3 spots. 2 of the spots being goals or holes, for the ball to pass in or through before returning to the centre point or to the opposition. As said, this needs to be seen in 4D and could be seen with an atom or other like configurations, with 2 points of that atom being goals, the centre being the nucleus. The energy is passed around different paths and routes on its way to holes or goals, as explained when done returning to the centre. This could be seen as the force of God is the referee, placing the earth, the ball inside the field, to be passed around by good and evil, the home and away team, in a competitive but fair match with laws and rules, for one force or team to come out on top. If we look at the passes placed and the goals scored in an average game, we can see the shape it forms in both basketball and football. The same can be said with tactics and plays used in sports. It's similar to the paths that energy takes. Another thing with sports and tourist fields, the stadiums look exactly the same. The stadiums are showing the makeup of our realm, it having an open top which can be covered and open, the same as a dome, which may explain FUD from above. We are the spectators in the stadium that cheers on the game of life, mostly none of the players. We simply are influenced by the forces of life on the pitch, which are positive or negative, and react to those forces, cheer and boo the events of life, of Earth, the realm, cheering and booing the players affecting the game, the light and the dark. A cycle the Earth is on, just like a time period in any sport. Every game has a set period in which it has to play, set rules and laws which can be broken, but if done so, the fouling player or team are punished accordingly. The pitch where the game takes place, the battle takes place, is at the centre of the world, where the spectators are not allowed, on the pitch or in the centre while the game is being played. It sometimes may feel we are in control of the game, but mostly we are not, although our energy can influence the players and the game. This for us is the centre of our realm, where we are not allowed, kept around the edges by barriers, also kept within the stadium by walls. Similar to the images we see of the Fountain of Youth, a sacred place, untouched. Side point, there are many analogies for the fountain, physical and spiritual. It can be found within as well as without. Note, there are many games in a season and the years they are played in. One game is merely one battle, the war is never ending. So we may be here to spectate for a great game or a boring one. Either way, whether the home team win or lose, whether light or dark win, there are more games to come. Dark may be winning the battle, but it doesn't mean light have lost. Generally, the home team are more supported and stand more of a chance as they are at home, but as there are two poles, games have to be played at home and away. Each team is respectively seen as a home team and an away team depending on the fans and where it's played, where the energy is. When the energy passes through a hole or pole, it creates an effect. In sports, this is the war of the fans, the glow of the lights and maybe fireworks. In physics and energy, this would appear as a halo or a crown aglow. This is why the winners of the season are crowned champions. Crowned champions. Life is much like football when we look at it. A team, let's say, God's team, won last season, but may start off the season poor. The team from last season, one of Satan's team, came a close second, and are now above them in the table. As time goes on, the matches are played. God's team come back and win the league before starting it all again. The starting it all again and the end of the season could be seen as a reset, and all the matches that are played and the battles here on earth fought over the years that determine which team wins the league. But as we know, it's a cycle, and the cycle repeats itself over and over. Yes, there's a winner this year, but there'll be a different winner next year, or potentially the same winner. Teams, maybe we can see them as two sets of opposites that differ in appearance. Just like in the world, evil comes in many shapes and forms. Many different teams working to the same agenda, the same for good, many variations of good and light. Not on the same teams as such, but working for the same aim. Like in most cities, we have two teams which create two poles of division. The only way to get around this is not to support either team, to be neutral. But that's not to say the energy of those two poles still won't affect you in some way, shape or form. This reminds me of the old story when a dad takes his child to a football game and the dad asks the son, "Who do you want to win?" And the boy says, "I want the team that wins to win." Ultimately, the boy didn't care. He wasn't set to a pole yet. He was neutral. This leads me on to the two poles also being two towers. We see this in many arts and followings and cults. But when the Twin Towers were blown up in 2001, maybe this was a representation of the two poles being damaged, which ultimately would cause chaos. In sports, the energy of the ball would have no aim or goal, it would just keep travelling around. Due to keep travelling around, it would exhaust itself. Because the ball or energy has to pass through the hole of goal to get recharged, represented by the cheer of the crowd. If there were no goals, the players would exhaust themselves in the same way and the game would end up a disaster, with the components that move the energy weakening until failing. Ultimately, with no goals or holes, no play or movement would continue, everything would stop. And maybe we saw this physically in the world with the lockdown. Everything would slow before coming to a standstill before slowly moving again. Like the slow process of coming out of the lockdown for things to attempt to continue. But for things to be normal, the poles have to be fixed, the one or two towers. Natural damage or man-made damage. The two towers from our reality were damaged in a man-made way. If the poles were damaged naturally, you would expect them to fix themselves naturally. But if man-made, maybe they have to be fixed by man. Even worse to think that the poles were damaged for one pole to be fixed and used more, and that pole the negative one. If that was the case, we are heading to a worse place. But the counteraction for this is to build another pole for balance or duality, and even further, for the destruction of the negative pole, to return to the first pole for balance, peace, beauty and harmony. Natural and man-made, that is the way that we must go.